Hello friends. So in this video we talk about the SQL and the vulnerability present in SQL, that is SQL injection attack. Basically this is a web-based attack because in each and every website we have three common components. One is a client side, that is the browser. Through the browser we can access a server, and if a client asks something to the server will look that query into the database. So client, server and database, three things are there. Data is stored in a database and fetched through the SQL queries. If the SQL query is not handled properly by the client or the server, then we may face the SQL injection attack. In the SQL injection attack, the attacker used the web browser and tried to steal the information stored in a database. That information may be very much critical, like your ID, password, transaction detail, credit card information. They can steal anything. So in this video we look for the possible attacks that can happen through the SQL injection or the SQL vulnerability. Basically this vulnerability presents in a web server or the web page. So we'll see it. If you see this cartoon, that is a very famous in the world of database security. There is a school teacher that asks somebody's mom that yes, we are having some computer trouble. So the mom asks, what is the trouble actually, why you are calling to me? So she said, you gave your son's name Robert, apostrophe, bracket, semicolon, drop table students, and the semicolon and dash dash. So she said, okay, yes, we call him like that. So what you run these things, what happened? Normally the semicolon, that means you terminate one command, and the drop table students, that is a new command you're giving in a sequence. So whenever drop table students is coming, that means if the table name is students, what happened in the activities? The table should be dropped, that means deleted from the database. So if students are writing their name in that way and you don't have a database security, so that means you can't do anything. Your table is deleted and nobody can recover them. Due to this silly writing mistake or the name, there is a comedy, it's a comic thing. But if that thing has happened in some machine and that thing has happened that they lost their whole data of that particular years of students, that is a very big things, and the things to be made understand the database security is too much required. But this is the kind of silly mistake, but that mistake is come with a lot of penalty. Let's suppose if this thing should happen in a bank and all bank accounts should be deleted. Okay, if all bank accounts are deleted, so what happened? It's a big trouble. Okay, so this is a joke, but if we take it seriously, security person will take it seriously. It is a very serious alarm, because due to the simple thing, the input provider or the adversary or the attacker should provide in that particular network or the particular database, you can lose everything. So that means if you take it seriously, you should learn about the security and the seriousness of the security. So we should have to be sanitize our database inputs every time. Otherwise, your company, your network, everything should be destroyed. So basically, we talk about the security, database security. So how we can use this database? Usually, no one can use database directly, right? There are certain ways to reach up to the database. The most common way is to the web, where we are running the client server technology. You can give your input. You can give input through the browser. Okay, browser will carry your data and send the data to the server. And the server is having the database. The server will process your query, store into the database, and return the result to the client. So in a server, maybe the database is a different entity and it is stored in a different place also. So that is a common way that we are using or interacting with a database. If you have a direct entry or access to the database, then it is fine. You can do anything. You can delete, you can physically delete the tables. But that is not possible for the adversary or somebody's, because the most way that is, if you want to work with a bank, so you can't go to the bank system directly. You can use through the browser only. Okay, you don't have access to the bank server. So this is the way that we communicating for the database or for any of the things in the IT industry. Another way is a mobile app. That means some interface you require and some client system you have. Maybe it's from the mobile, maybe it's from the web browser or something else. You can't have direct access to the particular machine. Okay. So basically, how the web traffic will move? The client will click on the browser machine. The HTTP request go to the server. Maybe sometime HTTPS. Okay, that means you need a one protocol, and you follow the network hierarchy. Okay, so the IP and TCP and the application layers are responsible for the things. But if your query is malicious, so network thing can't do anything. Your query will reach to the server. Okay, so the server request will contain the URL basically and the header description of the browser, and the request will go in two different manners. Maybe it's a get or post. Get means all the data whatever you are putting, that means the ID, password, key, invert, queries, everything should be go with the URL itself. Okay, and they are visible to all. So, and another is a post method. So that include data, but as a separate field. So it is do not have any side effect. It is take it separate one. But if it is using the get method, so get method is faster, but it contains all the information. Okay. So whenever your data reached to the server and the session is established, so your information or the query that you are posting, it is going to server, and from server it is go to the database. And here there's a trick that adversaries uses. If it's a get method and it's a no security in database, simple the drop table command in the very first example, it will simply execute and destroy all the things in your machine. Okay, so we need to protect this state from the any kind of vulnerability and any kind of the weakness over this. So how we can prevent that thing? So there's a ACID rule in a database. I think all of you heard about that thing. You learn about things from the database. So a server should follow the ACID properties. That means the atomicity. That means your transaction should be complete either entirely or not. Consistency. Your database should be your database is always in a valid state. Isolation. Result from transaction aren't visible until it is complete. Durability. Once a transaction is committed, its effect persists despite the power failure. It should be durable. This is called the database management system. And these properties are always good to cure and prevent the things. Okay. So if your server is using these things, then it is a chance that you will be safe from the attacks. If we are talking about in terms of SQL, so since we are talking about the database security, so SQL is a major player because all the databases uses the structured query language, as we know, And most of the time in the programming we use the SQL statements. Okay, simple query, select asterisk from the table, update table in the table name with a column, etc. Insert, drop table. There's some various common commands are there. Okay, if you see in this example, this is the table name is users. So if we are writing the select age from the user where name is D, the first row should be selected. If we write the update users set email readgood@pp.com, where age is equal to 32. So if we see the third row is going to be selected. And if we write dash dash, that it is for the comment in a SQL. If we write insert into the users and we write the values, the Frank M57 something, that means new row should be created. And to drop the table, if we write drop table users, the table should be deleted. Nobody can stop. If we perform these things in a continuous manner, that at the end the table should be dropped. Okay, but you can't do that thing directly. You can't write these SQL query directly. So how you can write? Basically, in our website, we have some GUI or the UI based framework where, for example, see this diagram, where the website will ask for the username and the password. Okay. And there is a one login button. And once you click on the login, your code will go to the server and server will execute the query. What query it will execute? If you see the login code, this is in a PHP format, basically. The result is equal to MySQL underscore query, where we write select asterisk from user. That means we have to match whether user is there or not. Okay. So we give the query where user name is equal to the username and password is equal to the password. If both things will match, so one name should become, that name go to the result, and you know that it's a thing happen. If it is successful, so you are login as that particular user and return the result. So how the exploit should come here? The thing is that it's a simple thing, performing the select query, ID and password. So where is the exploit? How the exploit should come? Let's suppose you see the thing, how you can modify exploit. In the username, if I write the Frank, single colon, single comma, or 1 is equal to 1. So what I added over there, name, and I finish that thing, because we know that whenever we write into the query, if you see the after user, there is a single quote or the apostrophe marks is there. So we write the Frank, that means apostrophe is completed, and or command is there. Or means either this or this, or 1 is equal to 1. So maybe username is not wrong, correct. Okay, it is wrong, but 1 is equal to 1 is correct. So that thing will pass, and we put the brackets and semicolon. That means the query is completed. And then after we write double dash, that means we put the comment over there. So if you see the second query here, so a query will become MySQL query, select asterisk from users, where name is equal to Frank or 1 is equal to 1 semicolon, and rest thing will become the comment. So your code is not going to read anything. And what happened? If your ID and password is not correct, but the attacker should in your machine can't stop due to this silly thing. And as a programmer, we are not thinking about that. We simply write the queries. Maybe most of you write the queries in a program like that. So your machine will gone. Nobody can stop them. This is known as a SQL injection. Okay, so this thing we need to prevent. So this is a very much dangerous if you see this thing and try to understand. So it is difficult one, right? Any query? So think about that scenario. So SQL injection is not like that we are just trying to drop in deleting a table. We can authenticate and unauthenticate user with the help of this one. So this is a bit serious thing. How you can prevent, how you can go with that. That is a major issue. So I think you understood the meaning of SQL injection. That means a simple thing, but your login ID will not be useful or workable anymore. Okay, another example, if we consider the another one, okay, that one was the only the authentication, but the next one is more serious than that. In the same query, after the same query, if I write drop table users and my current table name is user or any of the table in my database name as a users, what happened? That table should be deleted and nobody can stops. And your system can't do anything because of the SQL injection, because of the weakness of the SQL. The attacker use it and perform malicious activity. This is a malicious activity. They are dropping your table. It's a difficult one, difficult to trace, understand or not? Yes, it is too much difficult. So think about that, how you can prevent that type of thing, because this is a very common practice. That type of thing always available in our database, our programming. I think it's a too much dangerous alarm. How to prevent the things? There are certain ways we can prevent, but in a programming time, whenever we write a program as a coder or as a programmer, we can't think these type of scenarios. We should think. That's why security will become a more difficult issues now these days, and there is a very good profile you can earn if you have a security certificates and you will become the security person. Okay, so if we talk about some countermeasure of it, how we can reduce the thing, how we can keep ourselves secure. So there are things that we have to be used. Basically, if you see the query, select asterisk from the user where name and user password is something like that. So that has two different part in a single query. And that part is a combination of code and data. SQL query as well as the user input parameter, you have both the things. So this thing will behave like a similar buffer overflow, because that variable user, you can't fix the limit of that one, you can't fix the boundary of them. So it will be overflow. So whenever the boundary between the code and data will blur, then we give the opportunity to the adversary. Okay, you can come and do the things, because we are inviting them and we putting vulnerability by ourselves. That thing we should avoid. Okay. So how we can avoid that thing? So the important thing is that the issues that we are going to be deal here, you should be things put in the form of data, not in the form of code. If you see the query, that is select asterisk from where users table name, you can write and something at their end and add is equal to. There are two things that are in the code, like code, $user and $password. They are not the hard coded thing. They are the user. It depends on the user input. So you have to validate the input. Okay. Think